What if everything you were taught about economic strength was backwards? What if empires don't fall because of enemies, wars, or bad leaders, but because of the financial systems they create to feel invincible? Look at your life right now. Prices rising faster than wages, debt everywhere, jobs that feel less secure every year, governments printing money while telling you inflation is temporary. What if none of this is accidental? What if the United States isn't going through a rough patch, but is deep inside a historical collapse pattern that has already destroyed every global empire before it? Spain, Britain, the Soviet Union, different centuries, different flags, same ending. And here's the terrifying part. The modern collapse doesn't look like ruins. It looks like prosperity right until it doesn't, because today's empire doesn't conquer land. It conquers balance sheets. In this video, we're exposing the 7-stage collapse pattern and why the US is already at stage 5. Not opinion, not politics, documented history, financial mechanics. Before we continue, quick community check-in. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your country in the comments. And if you want the unfiltered truth they don't teach in schools or show on mainstream news, hit subscribe. Because what you're about to hear explains why the pain you feel today was engineered decades ago. Let's start with Spain. In the 1500s, Spain was the United States of its time. It controlled global trade routes, it owned massive colonies, and it had something every empire dreams of: the world's reserve resource, silver. Ship after ship arrived from the Americas, loaded with treasure. Spain felt unstoppable. So what did it do? It borrowed aggressively against future wealth. It fought endless wars. It outsourced production, and it let financiers replace builders. Sound familiar? Spain didn't collapse overnight. It inflated its currency by flooding Europe with silver. Prices exploded, wages lagged, debt spiraled. By the early 1600s, Spain had defaulted on its sovereign debt 4 times. The empire rotted from the inside, not from invasion. Now, Britain, in 1939, Britain ruled 24% of the world's land and population. The pound was the global reserve currency. London was the financial capital of Earth. But maintaining empire was expensive. So Britain did what Spain did, just more sophisticated, borrowed it. It leaned on banks instead of factories. By 1945, Britain was bankrupt. By 1956, during the Suez Crisis, the illusion shattered. The pound collapsed. The empire ended. Now the Soviet Union, different ideology, same financial reality, massive military spending, chronic deficits, artificial growth numbers, hidden insolvency. By the late 1980s, the USSR wasn't defeated militarily. It ran out of economic oxygen. The system couldn't sustain itself anymore. Sound familiar? Here's the pattern they never teach. Stage 1, rise through production and trade. Stage 2, global dominance and reserve status. Stage 3, financialization replaces productivity. Stage 4, debt is splodges, but is hidden. Stage 5, currency weaponization and asset bubbles. Stage 6, loss of confidence. Stage 7, systemic collapse or reset. Now ask yourself honestly, where is the United States today? The US produces less than 11% of global manufacturing, yet controls over 58% of global reserves. The US dollar is backed not by gold, but by debt and belief. Here's where the story turns dark. Every collapsing empire believed it had discovered a new system, one that broke historical rules. Spain thought silver made it immune. Britain thought banking genius made it immune. The USSR thought ideology made it immune. The United States thought financial engineering made it immune. And this is where our key mechanism enters. Not the Federal Reserve alone, not Congress, not Wall Street in isolation, but a hidden structure most people have never heard explained clearly. The global dollar shadow banking and derivatives machine, an invisible empire of leverage. The system allowed banks to create money without creating value, to move risk off balance sheets, to turn debt into assets, to socialize losses while privatizing gains. It didn't start yesterday. It accelerated after 1971 when the US abandoned gold. It exploded after 1987 and metastasized after 2008. And today, it is larger than the global economy itself. Most Americans believe the government controls money. It doesn't, shadow banking does. And the scariest part, the people who built it knew exactly how it would end because history already told them, but they did it anyway. Why? Because collapse doesn't hurt the architects. It hurts everyone else. And in the next section, we'll expose how this machine actually works, who benefits, who pays, and why the receipt is wilder than you think. Let's simplify the monster. Traditional banking is boring. Deposits, loans, reserves. Shadow banking is not. Shadow banking includes investment banks, hedge funds, money market funds, repo market, structured investment vehicles, derivatives, desks. These entities create credit without deposits. By 2007, shadow banking in the US was larger than the entire traditional banking system. That's not opinion. That's Federal Reserve data. Now add derivatives. Derivatives are bets on bets, insurance on insurance, promises stacked on promises. By 2008, the global derivatives market was estimated at $600 trillion. Today, conservative estimates exceed $1 quadrillion. That's over 10 times global GDP. This is not wealth. This is leverage. Here's the illusion. Banks package debt, rate it safe, sell it globally, insure it with derivatives, then borrow against it again. $1 of real value becomes $20, $30, sometimes $50 of financial claims. Greed loves leverage, but leverage hates reality. So what happens when bets go bad? They don't fail. They get bailed out. In 2008, the US didn't rescue the economy. It rescued the shadow banking system. The Federal Reserve quietly committed over $16 trillion in emergency lending, not dollar. 700 billion, like the headline said. 16 trillion. Banks learned a lesson. Risk is optional. Losses are socialized. This is called moral hazard, and moral hazard breeds parasitic finance. Instead of investing in factories, innovation, or workers, capital chases bubbles. Tech, housing, stocks, crypto, AI, each bubble bigger than the last. Why? Because the system demands constant expansion to avoid collapse. Now add reserve currency privilege. Because the dollar is global, the US can export inflation. It can borrow endlessly. It can sanction rivals by weaponizing payment systems. But here's the trap. To supply the world with dollars, the US must run permanent deficits. This is known as Triffin's dilemma, and it has never ended well. By 2024, US national debt exceeded $34 trillion. Interest payments alone surpassed $1 trillion per year. Foreign demand for US treasuries fell to multi-decade lows. Stage 5 behavior. Empires at this stage don't collapse immediately. They inflate. They financialize harder. They deny reality. They tell citizens, this is normal. This time is different. This is under control. Spain said that. Britain said that. The USSR said that every time. Here's the darkest truth. Shadow banking removes failure from capitalism. But failure is how systems cleanse excess. When failure is outlawed, collapse becomes inevitable. Because pressure doesn't disappear. It accumulates quietly until it explodes. And when this system breaks, there is no national firewall. It is global, instant, relentless. That's why central banks fear loss of confidence more than anything else. Because money is belief, and belief is fragile. Here's the final warning. The modern system is faster than any in history. More interconnected, more leveraged. Spain waited decades to collapse. Britain took generations. The USSR unraveled over years. The next collapse won't be slow. Algorithms trade in milliseconds. Capital flees instantly. Confidence evaporates overnight. And when belief breaks, institutions built on borrowed time fall first. History's lesson is brutal but clear. Empires don't learn from collapse. They repeat it with better suits and smarter language. Denial is the final stage. Not panic, not war, denial. So ask yourself, are we seeing strength or a system desperately trying to outrun its own shadow. If this video made you uncomfortable, good. That means you're paying attention. Share this with someone who still believes it can't happen here. Drop your thoughts in the comments. And subscribe if you want history explained before it repeats. Because the real question isn't whether collapse is coming. It's this. Are we wiser now, or walking the same path in better suits?